Commander Neil Armstrong felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders as the Eagle lunar module descended toward the Sea of Tranquility. Through the small triangular window, the moon's surface appeared desolate and crater-scarred, exactly as NASA's extensive preparations had led him to expect. Beside him, Buzz Aldrin called out altitude readings while monitoring their fuel consumption with the precision of a Swiss timekeeper. 60 feet, coming down at 2.5, Aldrin announced, his voice steady despite the historic magnitude of their mission. Forward drift to the right. Contact light. Armstrong shut down the engine as the Eagle's footpads touched the lunar surface with barely a whisper. After months of training and 3 days of space travel, they had finally arrived at humanity's first foothold beyond Earth. The silence that followed felt profound, broken only by the steady hum of life support systems and their own controlled breathing. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Armstrong transmitted, his words destined to echo through history. The response from Mission Control crackled through their headsets, filled with barely contained excitement and relief. They had done it. 2 human beings now sat on the surface of another world, representatives of their entire species, taking the first tentative steps into the cosmic unknown. During their initial hours on the surface, everything proceeded according to the carefully choreographed mission plan. Armstrong became the first human to set foot on lunar soil, delivering his famous words about one small step and one giant leap. Aldrin joined him shortly after, and together they began the methodical process of collecting samples, conducting experiments, and documenting their historic visit. The moon's gravity, roughly 1/6 that of Earth, made their movements feel almost dreamlike. Each step launched them higher and farther than seemed natural, creating a strange ballet of exploration across the alien landscape. The black sky overhead, devoid of atmosphere, showed stars with a clarity impossible to achieve from Earth, while the blue marble of their home planet hung like a precious gem against the infinite darkness. As they worked through their checklist, both astronauts noticed something that hadn't appeared in any of their training materials or pre-mission briefings. Scattered across the immediate area around their landing site were small, metallic objects that gleamed with an unusual luster under the harsh solar illumination. At first glance, they appeared to be natural formations, perhaps unusual mineral deposits created by ancient impacts or volcanic activity. "Neil, are you seeing these formations over here?" Aldrin's voice carried a note of curiosity as he examined one of the objects more closely. "They don't match anything from our geological surveys." Armstrong bounded over to join his crewmate, his boots kicking up small clouds of fine lunar dust that settled immediately in the airless environment. The object Aldrin indicated was roughly the size of a football, smooth and curved with a surface that seemed to shift between silver and deep blue depending on the viewing angle. More intriguingly, it appeared to be artificial rather than natural. "That's definitely not in our rock identification manual," Armstrong observed, circling the object carefully. "The surface characteristics are unlike anything we studied in training." They found several similar objects within a 100-meter radius of their landing site, each slightly different in size and shape, but sharing the same unusual metallic composition and geometric precision. The implications were staggering, but both men had been trained to maintain scientific objectivity even in extraordinary circumstances. Houston had been monitoring their communications, and Mission Control quickly recognized the significance of their discovery. Dr. Harrison Schmidt, the mission's chief geologist, requested detailed descriptions and photographs of the anomalous objects from every possible angle. The astronauts complied, documenting each find with the methodical precision that had characterized the entire Apollo program. "The surface appears to be some kind of alloy," Aldrin reported, running his gloved hand along one of the larger specimens. "It's completely smooth, no visible seams or construction marks, but the geometric precision suggests artificial origin." What made their discovery even more remarkable was the object's apparent age. The lunar dust patterns around them indicated they had been present for an extremely long time, possibly millions or even billions of years. Yet their surfaces showed no signs of the pitting and erosion that characterized other objects exposed to the moon's harsh environment over geological timescales. Armstrong collected several smaller specimens, carefully placing them in specially prepared sample containers. The weight felt wrong for their size, suggesting either an unusually dense material or perhaps hollow construction. Each object seemed to generate its own subtle electromagnetic field, causing minor interference with their instrument readings. As they continued their exploration, they discovered that the objects weren't randomly distributed. Instead, they formed a rough, circular pattern around a central point approximately 50 meters from their landing site. The arrangement suggested intentional placement rather than natural scattering from an impact event or other geological process. "Houston, we're seeing what appears to be a deliberate geometric arrangement," Armstrong transmitted, his training keeping his voice level despite the revolutionary implications. Requesting guidance on collection priorities and extended surface time. The response from Mission Control took longer than usual, and both astronauts could imagine the intense discussions taking place in the flight director's room. This discovery could potentially rewrite humanity's understanding of their place in the universe, but they were operating under strict time constraints with limited life support reserves. Dr. Schmidt's voice came through their headsets with barely contained excitement. "Continue documentation and collect as many samples as feasible within your current timeline. This could be the most significant discovery in human history." As they worked to gather additional specimens, both astronauts began noticing subtle details that made their discovery even more mysterious. The objects seemed to maintain a consistent internal temperature despite the extreme thermal variations on the lunar surface. Direct sunlight on the moon could reach temperatures over 250 degrees Fahrenheit, while shadows plunged below minus 250 degrees, yet the metallic artifacts remained at roughly room temperature. Additionally, when they placed their collection tools near the objects, the instruments registered slight but consistent magnetic anomalies. The moon was known to have virtually no magnetic field, making these readings particularly significant. Whatever these objects were made of, they possessed properties that defied conventional understanding of material science. Aldrin discovered what appeared to be markings on one of the larger specimens, etched so finely that they were barely visible even under direct examination. The patterns didn't resemble any known writing system or mathematical notation, yet they possessed an underlying symmetry that suggested deliberate design rather than natural formation. These markings appear to be some kind of symbolic representation, he reported to Houston. "The precision is extraordinary, beyond anything our current technology could achieve on such a scale." The implications of their discovery began to sink in as they continued their work. If these objects were indeed artificial and ancient, it meant that Earth was not the first world in the solar system to develop intelligent life. More significantly, it suggested that this intelligence had achieved spaceflight capability eons before humans had even evolved. Time pressure forced them to make difficult decisions about which specimens to prioritize for return to Earth. They selected the objects with the most distinct markings and unusual properties, carefully documenting the location and orientation of those they had to leave behind. Future missions would undoubtedly return to study the site in greater detail, but for now, they had to work within the constraints of their historic first landing. As their surface activities neared their planned conclusion, both astronauts took a final survey of their discovery site. The geometric arrangement of objects remained clearly visible in the lunar dust, creating an unmistakable pattern that would be easily identifiable in future orbital photography. They had stumbled upon evidence that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that intelligence had been exploring space for far longer than anyone had imagined. The return to the lunar module felt different now, weighted with the knowledge that they carried potentially the most important cargo in human history. As they prepared for launch and rendezvous with Michael Collins in the command module, Both men understood that their mission had evolved beyond its original parameters. They were no longer just explorers planting a flag on a distant world, but ambassadors returning with proof that the universe held wonders beyond their wildest imagination. Their radio communications with Houston maintained professional discipline, but the underlying current of excitement was unmistakable. Mission Control was already coordinating with the highest levels of government and the international scientific community to prepare for the analysis of their unprecedented samples. As the Eagle's ascent stage fired and lifted them away from the lunar surface, Armstrong and Aldrin could see their landing site shrinking below them. The geometric pattern of metallic objects remained visible until the very last moment, a testament to an ancient intelligence that had once looked up at the same stars that now guided humanity's first steps into the cosmic community. The universe had just become a much larger and more mysterious place, and humanity had taken their first step toward joining a story that had been unfolding for billions of years. The samples secured in their lunar module represented more than rock and metal. They carried the promise of knowledge that would transform human understanding of life, intelligence, and their place in the vast cosmic tapestry. Unknown to the astronauts, their discovery was only the beginning of a revelation that would challenge everything humanity thought they knew about their solar system and their role in a universe far more populated and ancient than anyone had dared to imagine. Michael Collins had spent the past 21 hours orbiting the moon in complete solitude, maintaining radio contact with Houston while waiting for his crewmates to complete their historic surface mission. As the command module pilot, he had experienced the unique privilege of being the only human being to fly behind the moon, completely cut off from all radio contact with Earth and his fellow astronauts during each orbit's far side passage. During these periods of total isolation, Collins had used his time productively, conducting orbital photography surveys and astronomical observations from his unique vantage point. The lunar surface passing below him revealed details invisible from Earth-based telescopes, and he had documented several interesting geological formations for later analysis by mission planners and scientists. However, as he prepared for the Eagle's rendezvous and docking, Collins noticed something that made him question his own observations. During his latest pass over the Sea of Tranquility, he had spotted what appeared to be a geometric pattern near the Eagle's landing site. At first, he attributed it to shadows cast by surface rocks or perhaps artifact from the landing itself. But the formation remained consistent across multiple orbital passes with different lighting conditions. The pattern was clearly artificial, consisting of metallic objects arranged in a precise, circular configuration that was easily visible from his altitude of 60 miles above the surface. More intriguingly, similar patterns appeared at several other locations across the lunar nearside, suggesting a much broader distribution than initially apparent from ground-level observations. Houston, Columbia here, Collins transmitted during his next communication window with Mission Control. I'm observing what appear to be geometric surface features at multiple locations on the near side, requesting guidance on photographic priorities. The response from Houston carried an unusual tension that Collins couldn't quite identify. Flight Director Gene Kranz's voice was carefully controlled, suggesting that Mission Control was dealing with information beyond normal mission parameters. Columbia continues standard photographic procedures and document any unusual surface features according to established protocols. We'll provide additional guidance after Eagle's successful docking. Collins understood that something significant was happening, but his training kept him focused on the immediate task of preparing for his crewmate's return. The rendezvous and docking procedure required precise timing and navigation, with no margin for error or distraction from secondary objectives. As the Eagle's ascent stage climbed toward orbit, Collins could see the tiny spacecraft against the star field, growing larger as it approached the predetermined rendezvous point. The successful completion of this maneuver would reunite the crew and begin their journey home to Earth, but Collins sensed that they were now carrying something far more significant than lunar samples and scientific data. The docking sequence proceeded flawlessly, with the Eagle's probe mechanism engaging Columbia's drogue with a satisfying mechanical thud that reverberated through both spacecraft. As the docking latches engaged and pressure equalized between the two modules, Collins opened the tunnel hatch to greet his returning crewmates. Armstrong and Aldrin appeared tired, but energized by their historic accomplishment. However, Collins immediately noticed an underlying tension in their demeanor that suggested their surface activities had revealed something extraordinary. The sample containers they transferred to the command module were handled with unusual care, and their mission reports carried subtle hints of discoveries beyond their original objectives. "Mike, we need to brief you on some additional findings from the surface," Armstrong said quietly as they secured the lunar samples in the command module's storage compartments. "Our surface activities revealed some unexpected artifacts that may have significant implications for future mission planning." As they prepared for trans-Earth injection and the beginning of their 3-day journey home, Aldrin provided Collins with a detailed account of their surface discoveries. The metallic objects, the geometric arrangements, and the apparent artificial nature of the findings painted a picture that fundamentally altered the context of their mission. Collins realized that his orbital observations suddenly made much more sense. The patterns he had spotted from altitude were part of a larger network of similar formations scattered across the lunar surface. His unique vantage point had allowed him to observe the broader scope of what Armstrong and Aldrin had discovered at ground level. "The distribution appears to be global," Collins reported to his crewmates, sharing his orbital photography data. "I've identified at least 12 similar formations across the near side, and there may be more on the far side that we haven't documented yet." Their discovery raised immediate questions about mission security and information management. Houston had clearly anticipated the possibility of extraordinary findings, as evidenced by their prepared protocols for handling unusual discoveries. However, the scope and implications of what they had found exceeded any realistic pre-mission planning scenarios. As Columbia's service module engine fired to begin their trajectory back to Earth, the 3 astronauts found themselves grappling with the reality that they were returning to a world that would never look at space exploration the same way again. They carried physical evidence of non-human intelligence in their solar system, proof that Earth was not the first world to develop spacefaring capabilities. During their coast back to Earth, the crew maintained regular communication schedules with Mission Control, but their conversations now carried additional layers of meaning. Houston was coordinating with government agencies, international partners, and scientific institutions to prepare for the analysis of their unprecedented samples and data. Dr. Schmidt's briefings became increasingly detailed, requesting specific information about the object's physical properties, electromagnetic characteristics, and surface markings. It became clear that ground-based preparations were already underway for comprehensive analysis using every available scientific resource. "The preliminary isotopic analysis will be crucial," Schmidt explained during one of their scheduled communication periods. "We need to determine the age and composition of these materials to understand their origin and the timeline of their placement on the lunar surface." Collins contributed his orbital photography to the growing database of information about their discovery. His images revealed that the geometric patterns were not random, but followed specific placement criteria that suggested advanced planning and purpose. The formations appeared to be positioned at geologically significant locations, possibly indicating scientific monitoring stations or markers for some unknown civilization. The implications extended far beyond mere scientific curiosity. If these objects were indeed ancient monitoring stations or survey markers, it suggested that Earth had been under observation for an extremely long period. The possibility that humanity's development had been monitored by an advanced civilization raised questions about contact, intervention, and the future of human space exploration. As they passed the halfway point in their return journey, the crew began preparing for their re-entry and recovery procedures. However, they now understood that their mission debriefing would extend far beyond normal post-flight activities. They would be the first humans to provide testimony about definitive proof of non-human intelligence in the solar system. The lunar samples secured in their storage compartments represented more than geological specimens. They carried evidence that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. The careful analysis of these materials would likely occupy teams of scientists for years or even decades, gradually revealing the secrets of whoever had placed them on the lunar surface. Collins found himself reflecting on his unique role as the orbital observer who had first identified the global scope of their discovery. His photographic documentation would provide crucial context for understanding the distribution and purpose of the mysterious formations. Future missions would undoubtedly return to study these sites in greater detail, but the Apollo 11 crew would forever hold the distinction of being humanity's first ambassadors to encounter evidence of cosmic neighbors. The 3-day coast back to Earth provided time for the crew to process the magnitude of their discovery and prepare for the challenges that awaited them upon return. They understood that their mission had evolved from a simple flags and footprints demonstration into a pivotal moment in human history that would reshape how their species approached space exploration and their search for life beyond Earth. Their radio communications with Houston continued to maintain operational discipline, but the underlying current of excitement and anticipation was unmistakable. Mission Control was coordinating with the highest levels of government and international scientific organizations to ensure that their unprecedented findings received appropriate analysis and consideration. As Earth grew larger in their command module windows, the 3 astronauts realized they were returning to a world that would soon learn it was not alone in the universe. The geometric patterns scattered across the lunar surface were evidence of intelligence that had been present in their solar system for eons, quietly observing and perhaps waiting for humanity to develop sufficient technology to discover their presence. The universe had suddenly become a much more crowded and interesting place, and the Apollo 11 crew carried the proof that would open humanity's eyes to cosmic realities beyond their wildest imagination. Their mission had succeeded beyond its original objectives, delivering not just scientific samples and data, but evidence that would fundamentally transform human understanding of life, intelligence, and their role in the vast cosmic community that surrounded them. The recovery operations awaiting them in the Pacific Ocean would mark not just the successful completion of humanity's first lunar landing mission, but the beginning of a new era in which Earth would take its first tentative steps toward joining a universe populated by intelligence far older and more advanced than anyone had dared to imagine. The USS Hornet steamed through the calm Pacific waters toward the predetermined recovery coordinates, her crew preparing for the most significant spacecraft recovery in human history. Admiral Donald Davis understood that his ship was about to receive not just 3 returning heroes, but potentially the most important cargo ever to return from space. The sealed briefings he had received from Washington indicated that the Apollo 11 mission had discovered something that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. As the command module Columbia descended through Earth's atmosphere under its trio of orange and white parachutes, tracking stations around the world monitored every aspect of the reentry sequence. The spacecraft's heat shield had protected its precious cargo through the fiery plunge from space, bringing the crew and their unprecedented samples safely back to their home planet. The splashdown occurred exactly on schedule, with Columbia settling upright in the gentle Pacific swells approximately 900 miles southwest of Hawaii. Recovery helicopters were airborne within minutes, approaching the bobbing spacecraft to begin the complex process of crew extraction and sample recovery. However, this recovery operation differed significantly from standard procedures. The biological isolation garments and quarantine protocols that NASA had established for returning lunar crews now served a dual purpose. While officially designed to protect Earth from potential lunar microorganisms, they also provided a convenient cover for the extraordinary security measures surrounding the crew's unprecedented discoveries. Dr. William Carpentier and his medical team were prepared for a quarantine period that would extend far beyond the standard 21 days. The crew's debriefing sessions would be conducted by teams that included not only NASA officials and scientists, but representatives from intelligence agencies, international organizations, and the highest levels of government. As the recovery helicopter transported the crew to the Hornet, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins found themselves reflecting on the magnitude of what they had experienced. The lunar samples secured in specially designed containers represented physical proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, evidence that an advanced civilization had been present in their solar system for an incomprehensible span of time. The isolation facility aboard the Hornet had been modified with additional security measures and communication equipment that would allow direct contact with Washington, Moscow, and other world capitals. The discovery of artificial structures on the lunar surface had implications that extended far beyond scientific curiosity, potentially affecting international relations, space policy, and humanity's long-term strategic planning. During their initial debriefing sessions, the crew provided detailed accounts of their surface discoveries to teams of specialists who had been hastily assembled from around the world. Dr. Schmidt led the scientific analysis efforts, while intelligence officials worked to assess the potential security implications of humanity's first contact with evidence of non-human technology. The metallic objects that Armstrong and Aldrin had discovered possessed properties that challenged fundamental assumptions about material science and engineering capabilities. Initial analysis revealed isotopic compositions that didn't match any known terrestrial or meteoritic materials, suggesting origins that predated the formation of Earth's solar system by billions of years. More significantly, the objects appeared to contain internal structures that defied explanation through conventional physics. X-ray analysis revealed complex geometric patterns within the solid metallic matrix, organized in ways that suggested advanced nanotechnology or perhaps principles of matter manipulation that human science had yet to discover. Collins' orbital photography provided crucial context for understanding the global distribution of similar formations across the lunar surface. Computer analysis of his images revealed over 40 distinct geometric patterns scattered across the visible hemisphere, with mathematical relationships between their positions that suggested careful planning and purpose. The implications of this discovery reached the highest levels of government within hours of the crew's recovery. President Nixon received detailed briefings about the artifacts and their potential significance, while secure communications linked Washington with allied capitals to coordinate the international response to humanity's first encounter with evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. Dr. Harold Urey, one of the world's leading experts on lunar geology, flew to Houston to personally examine the return samples. His initial assessment confirmed that the objects were definitely artificial and possessed characteristics that placed their origin far beyond current human technological capabilities. The precision of their construction and the sophistication of their internal structures suggested a level of scientific advancement that humanity might not achieve for centuries or millennia. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies worked to assess whether the lunar artifacts posed any potential threat to Earth or human civilization. The objects appear to be passive monitoring devices or survey markers rather than weapons or active surveillance equipment. But their true purpose remained unclear. The possibility that Earth had been under observation for millions or billions of years raised questions about whether humanity's development had been influenced or guided by external intelligence. International cooperation became essential as the scope of the discovery became apparent. The United Nations quickly established a special committee to coordinate the scientific analysis and policy response to humanity's first confirmed contact with non-human technology. Representatives from major spacefaring nations met in emergency session to develop protocols for future lunar exploration and potential contact scenarios. The scientific community mobilized unprecedented resources to analyze every aspect of the return samples. Teams of specialists from fields ranging from metallurgy to xenoarchaeology worked around the clock to unlock the secrets contained within the mysterious artifacts. Each new discovery raised additional questions about the civilization that had created them and their relationship to Earth's development. Advanced spectrographic analysis revealed that the objects contained elements and configurations that shouldn't have been stable under known physics. The materials appeared to exist in quantum states that defied conventional understanding of matter and energy, suggesting mastery of physical principles that human science was only beginning to glimpse through theoretical research. The internal geometric patterns discovered through high-resolution imaging appeared to contain information encoded at the molecular level. Computer scientists and linguists worked together to decode what might be the first examples of non-human symbolic communication ever encountered by humanity. The complexity and sophistication of these patterns suggested intelligence of extraordinary capability and longevity. As the weeks passed and analysis continued, a clearer picture began to emerge of what the Apollo 11 crew had discovered. The lunar artifacts appeared to be components of a vast monitoring network that had been observing Earth for geological timescales, possibly documenting the evolution of life and the eventual emergence of intelligence on the third planet from the Sun. The realization that humanity had been under observation for such an extended period had profound implications for philosophy, religion, and human self-understanding. Every major milestone in human development, from the emergence of language and tools to the development of agriculture and civilization, had potentially been recorded and analyzed by intelligence that viewed Earth from a cosmic perspective. Religious leaders grappled with the theological implications of the discovery, while philosophers debated what it meant for human uniqueness and significance in the universe. The knowledge that Earth was not alone in developing intelligent life was simultaneously humbling and inspiring, suggesting that the universe might be filled with civilizations at various stages of development. Educational institutions began preparing curricula that would help future generations understand their place in a cosmos populated by intelligence far older and more advanced than humanity. The discovery represented a fundamental paradigm shift comparable to the realization that Earth was not the center of the universe, requiring complete reevaluation of human assumptions about their cosmic role. The artifact's apparent age, predating human civilization by millions of times longer than recorded history, raised questions about the longevity and stability of the civilization that had created them. If intelligence could persist for such vast timescales, it suggested possibilities for human development that extended far beyond current planning horizons. As the analysis continued and more details emerged, humanity began to grasp the magnitude of what the Apollo 11 crew had stumbled upon during their historic mission. They had not simply planted a flag on another world, but had discovered evidence of a cosmic community that had been patiently observing Earth's development from its very beginning. The lunar surface, once viewed as a dead and lifeless wasteland, was revealed to be an archive containing billions of years of observations about Earth and its evolution. Future missions would undoubtedly return to study these sites in greater detail, gradually uncovering the complete scope of humanity's cosmic heritage. The three astronauts who had made this extraordinary discovery found themselves at the center of a transformation in human understanding that would echo through generations. Their mission had succeeded beyond its wildest objectives, opening doorways to knowledge that would guide humanity's development for centuries to come. The universe had revealed itself to be far more interesting and populated than anyone had imagined, and Earth was about to take its first steps toward joining a cosmic story that had been unfolding for billions of years. The evidence lay secured in laboratories around the world, waiting to reveal its secrets to a species that had just learned it was not alone in the vast expanse of space and time. 6 months after the Apollo 11 crew's return to Earth, the world had fundamentally changed. The initial shock of discovering non-human artifacts on the lunar surface had given way to an unprecedented global mobilization of scientific, technological, and intellectual resources. Humanity had awakened to the reality that they were not alone in the universe, and their response demonstrated the remarkable adaptability and determination that had carried them from caves to spaceships in just a few millennia. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled United Nations Scientific Advisory Committee, preparing to deliver the most significant briefing in human history. As the newly appointed director of the International Extraterrestrial Studies Consortium, she carried the responsibility of coordinating humanity's response to their first confirmed contact with non-human intelligence. The analysis of the Apollo 11 artifacts had progressed far beyond initial material studies. Teams of scientists from 47 nations had collaborated to decode the complex information structures embedded within the mysterious objects, gradually revealing a picture of Earth's history that no human had ever imagined. The entities who placed these monitoring stations on Luna appear to have maintained continuous observation of our planet for approximately 3.7 billion years, Dr. Vasquez announced to the assembled delegates. Their records document the emergence of life in Earth's oceans, the evolution of multicellular organisms, and every major extinction and radiation event in our planet's biological history. The implications were staggering. Humanity's entire evolutionary history had been recorded and analyzed by intelligence that viewed Earth as a fascinating biological experiment worthy of careful documentation. The molecular-level information storage within the artifacts contained detailed records of genetic changes, environmental shifts, and evolutionary adaptations across geological timescales. More remarkably, the monitoring had continued through humanity's recent development. The artifacts contained records of human agricultural development, the rise of civilization, and even observations of Earth's industrial revolution and space program. The entities who created these devices had witnessed humanity's entire journey from primitive hunter-gatherers to spacefaring beings capable of discovering their surveillance network. Dr. James Harrison, formerly of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, had been appointed to lead the Technological Analysis Division of the consortium. His team had made breakthrough discoveries about the artifact's construction methods and operational principles that promised to revolutionize human technology. The material's science implications alone could advance our technological capabilities by centuries, Dr. Harrison reported to the International Committee. These objects demonstrate mastery of quantum-level matter manipulation that we're only beginning to understand theoretically. The energy storage and information processing capabilities exceed our current technology by factors we can barely calculate. The discovery had triggered a renaissance in human scientific endeavor unlike anything in recorded history. Universities around the world reported massive increases in enrollment for physics, astronomy, and xenological studies. Governments redirected resources towards space exploration and scientific research, recognizing that humanity's survival and prosperity might depend on rapidly advancing their technological capabilities. The Apollo 12 mission, launched just 4 months after Apollo 11's return, carried specialized equipment designed specifically to study the lunar artifacts in greater detail. The crew established humanity's first xenoarchaeological research station on the lunar surface, beginning the systematic excavation and analysis of what appeared to be a vast network of monitoring devices scattered across the moon. Commander Pete Conrad and his crew discovered that the artifact network extended far beyond surface installations. Ground-penetrating radar revealed subsurface structures that suggested a complex system of data storage and communication equipment buried beneath the lunar regolith. The scale of the installation indicated that the moon itself had been converted into a massive observation platform for studying Earth. Meanwhile, ground-based telescopes and space-based observatories began systematic searches for similar artifacts throughout the solar system. The Mariner program was expanded to include specific searches for artificial structures on Mars and Venus, while planned missions to the outer planets received additional instrumentation designed to detect non-human technology. The search for additional evidence of extraterrestrial presence had become humanity's highest priority. If the entities responsible for the lunar monitoring stations maintained similar installations elsewhere in the solar system, finding them could provide crucial insights into their capabilities, intentions, and current location. Dr. Sarah Chun, a quantum physicist from the University of Cambridge, led the effort to understand the artifact's information processing systems. Her team had successfully interfaced human computers with the alien technology, beginning the slow process of accessing the vast databases contained within the devices. "We've barely scratched the surface of the information these objects contain," Dr. Chen reported during a secure briefing to world leaders. "The data storage density exceeds our theoretical limits by orders of magnitude. We estimate that each artifact contains more information than every book ever written by human civilization combined." The initial data downloads revealed astronomical observations spanning billions of years, documenting the formation and evolution of the solar system with unprecedented detail. The entities had recorded the migration of planets, the formation of the asteroid belt, and the gradual evolution of Earth's atmosphere and climate over geological timescales. More intriguingly, the databases contained observations of other star systems and evidence of similar monitoring networks throughout the galaxy. Humanity appeared to be just one of thousands of worlds under observation by entities with capabilities that approached the technological singularity. Religious leaders struggled to incorporate these revelations into existing theological frameworks, while philosophers debated the implications for human free will and moral responsibility. If humanity's development had been observed and possibly influenced by advanced entities, what did that mean for concepts of human achievement and self-determination? The discovery had also triggered a global reassessment of space exploration priorities and international cooperation. The traditional competition between spacefaring nations had given way to unprecedented collaboration as humanity recognized that their cosmic neighbors possessed capabilities that made terrestrial conflicts seem insignificant by comparison. President Nixon announced the formation of the International Space Cooperation Treaty, establishing joint missions and shared technology development programs that would accelerate human expansion beyond Earth. The Soviet Union, China, and European nations committed to pooling their resources for rapid development of lunar bases and interplanetary exploration capabilities. The lunar artifacts had included star charts and navigation data that revealed the locations of similar monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Humanity now possessed a roadmap to locations where they might encounter evidence of active extraterrestrial civilizations, fundamentally altering the search for extraterrestrial intelligence from passive listening to active exploration. Dr. Frank Drake, pioneer of SETI research, found his life's work suddenly transformed from theoretical exercise to practical necessity. The artifacts contained electromagnetic signatures and communication protocols that suggested ways to establish contact with their creators or other monitored civilizations. "We're no longer searching for extraterrestrial intelligence," Dr. Drake announced at a press conference that was broadcast globally. "We've found definitive proof that such intelligence exists and has been observing us for billions of years. Our challenge now is learning to communicate with entities whose technological capabilities exceed our own by incomprehensible margins." The psychological impact on human civilization was profound and far-reaching. The knowledge that Earth had been under observation for geological timescales forced a complete reevaluation of human significance and purpose. Some found the revelation humbling, while others viewed it as validation that humanity had always been part of a larger cosmic community. Children growing up in this new reality would be the first generation to naturally assume that the universe was populated by intelligence far older and more advanced than humanity. Educational systems worldwide were rapidly adapting to prepare young people for a future in which contact with extraterrestrial civilizations was not just possible, but inevitable. The artifact's creators had demonstrated remarkable patience and restraint, observing humanity's development for billions of years without direct intervention. This suggested either benevolent intentions or perhaps adherence to ethical principles that prevented interference with developing civilizations. However, humanity's discovery of the monitoring network had fundamentally altered the equation. The entities now knew that Earth's inhabitants had achieved sufficient technological sophistication to detect their presence. The question that kept world leaders awake at night was whether this development would trigger a response from humanity's cosmic observers. Intelligence agencies worked around the clock to assess potential scenarios for first contact, while scientists raced to develop communication methods that might allow meaningful dialogue with entities whose capabilities bordered on the godlike. The future of human civilization might depend on their ability to prove themselves worthy of membership in a cosmic community that had been observing their development since before multicellular life existed on Earth. The Apollo 11 crew's accidental discovery had transformed from a simple lunar landing into humanity's graduation ceremony for joining a universe far more complex and populated than anyone had dared to imagine. The metallic objects that Armstrong and Aldrin had stumbled upon in the Sea of Tranquility were humanity's invitation to take their place in a cosmic story that had been unfolding for billions of years. As telescopes around the world turned toward the stars with new purpose and urgency, humanity prepared for a future in which they would no longer be alone. The universe awaited, vast and mysterious, filled with intelligence that had been patiently watching Earth's children grow up and develop the wisdom and capability to join them among the stars. The age of cosmic isolation was ending, and humanity's greatest adventure was about to begin.